Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to the Extra Life charity live stream. We're going to be playing some Democracy 3. A little bit disappointed we couldn't get the U4 multiplayer to work properly. We got a desync error right off the bat, and I have no patience for that kind of stuff, so just screw it. So yeah, we're going to play as Canada. Now, so we are going to play as the secret capitalists, right? We're gonna have to fake it at first. Because the Canadian electorate in this game, as I believe, is relatively sort of socialist, union, liberal kind of thing. And what we're going to want to do is change that over time. So our opposition is going to be the... who are they going to be? Just the regular Liberal Party is going to be our opposition. So Canada apparently gets hurricanes and earthquakes. I don't know if that sounds right, but we'll leave them there. We do have to deal with a monarchy. And yeah, the socialism, liberalism, we're going to keep it 100% for both. We could max it out or bring them down, but we're going to leave all the defaults for Canada in Democracy 3. Opposition, the Jewish Party. I could get assassinated. That's what happened last time I tried to do something like that. And that's why these are the secret capitalists. We are not the overt capitalists, because otherwise we're going to get caught. So, congratulations on your election victory. Welcome to your new job as Prime Minister. The lives of all 33 million citizens are now in your hands. As you will imagine, there are a number of situation concerns that you will need to deal with as soon as possible, while keeping an eye on the long-term improvement of our citizens' quality of life. Plus, do not forget that you face re-election in 5 years, so you will need to monitor the opinion polls and our party membership. Good luck. So, we're going to begin term of office. So this is everything in the game. There do seem to be a lot of things on the screen at first, but it actually becomes very, very easy to understand. First of all, in the middle, these are all the voter groups. So socialist, commuter, liberal, self-employed, so on and so on and so forth. Now, in any individual person belongs to more than one. That's not the one I wanted. Not that. What the hell am I looking for? Not that. Focus group. So we can find a specific person here, like Carter Howe over here. She is a socialist and relatively highly influenced by her socialist beliefs. She's also a bit of a motorist because she drives to work, but it's not that important to her. She is relatively religious. She's a fully middle income person. She's not poor. She's not rich. She is middle income. She maybe works for the government as a state employee, although it's not, again, it's not the dominant thing that's super important to her. She is moderately conservative, and this game uses the proper definitions of these things. So this is conservative as opposed to liberal in terms of personal freedom-y kind of stuff, right? This is very different from the socialist versus capitalist sort of continuum. Right, so socialism on one side, capitalism on the other, and then you have liberalism on one side and conservatism on the other. And it's entirely possible that you could have a socialist conservative, which actually this person is. They're relatively socialist, but they're also a conservative. Social policies, things like welfare and housing for the poor, that sort of thing, are very important to her. But she would not appreciate legal drugs or prostitution or abortion, I think. Well, especially being religious. And she also belongs to the everyone group. And so there are certain things that affect everyone all the time, no matter who they are. And apparently there's something going on there that makes her slightly unhappy. So that's one example of a voter. Then say we have this guy over here, Ava Tremblay, who's slightly unhappy. He's not part of any party membership. And he's only 42% likely to vote. And so he's modestly socialist. He is much more of a commuter, so he doesn't necessarily have his own car. He likes public transit. He's a slight patriot, a slight liberal, very heavily involved in the trade unions. He is somewhat wealthy, or, you know, he's at least somewhat influenced by things that affect wealthy people. He's a parent, although it doesn't necessarily run his entire life, and again, the everyone group. So those all come together into a single approval kind of thing. So right now, our overall popularity is relatively low. Also, each one of these groups, it's a very subtle thing, but there's kind of a gray background behind the word socialist that gives you an indication of how many people are in there. In Canada, in this game, 81.5% of the people are socialist, and only 18.5% of the people are capitalists. So I am a secret capitalist. So how am I going to pull this off? We'll see. So, first of all, in 5 years I got to get reelected. That's the bar up top. So the first term, I'm still going to play it relatively socialistically to make sure I get reelected. But my goal is to try to shift people over to the capitalist side of things. So we can, this is their happiness. Capitalist happiness is affected by this. And I don't really care about their happiness right now because there's not enough of them to elect me or not. What I care more about is their membership. Now, their membership is being pulled down by the corporation tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, state health services, state pensions, housing, state schools, and so on and so forth. Or more importantly, we can look at the things that are, that are taking the socialist population upwards. And it's going to be those same things in the opposite way. So, for example, with the inheritance tax, which is right here. The inheritance tax exists. It's not very high, well, 31%, but it exists, and it pisses off the wealthy. It makes the socialists happy. It increases our overall nation's equality. It pisses off the conservatives and so on and so forth. But the big thing that I'm concerned with right now is the membership in socialism is going up by virtue of the fact that I have socialism. Now, I could take down the inheritance tax, which would do that, or I could cancel it outright. So I'm going to revert that for now. And that might not be a terrible idea. It will, right now it's generating 1.2-ish billion dollars per quarter. And that's a decent amount of money. But again, secret capitalists. Now, the things in red are the big problems that are facing our country. We're dealing with obesity, just a little bit of it, partially because of agricultural subsidies, partially because our gross domestic product is so good. That's the biggest thing that runs our entire nation, is just the amount of money we have, and that's the GDP. So it's could be higher, but it's not terrible, and that has all kinds of effects. So people are not radically poor in my nation, so they get a little bit fatter. The state healthcare services is helping to bring that down. We also have a little bit of private healthcare. So that's represented. So right here, why is it not hovering? There we go. State health services is here. And then private healthcare. So I don't create private healthcare. It shows up automatically as we get state health services. So what I could do to save money is I could start bringing this down. I'd save a lot of money. It would also decrease the amount of people who are socialist. It would really piss off the socialists too, though. I think it might be a good way to start, though, is to cut a little bit of state health services. Just a little bit. We don't want to go over the top. But just a little bit. We'll save some money. We currently have... we're currently running a surplus. Well, you know what? If we're running a surplus, then clearly the thing to do is to cut taxes. We're going to cancel the inheritance tax altogether. You've worked hard all your life to raise money so that you could pass it on to your family, right? Is it right that the government takes that away from you? No. And by that, I mean this is the point of view of the character that I'm playing in this particular game. So yes, we're going to cancel the inheritance tax. Yeah, see, I'm secretly playing as Stephen Harper in this game. Alright, so I've done that. That's used up most of my political capital. That's how much power I have to really start influencing things. What I should do is set up a straw poll maybe for some policies we might want to inherit next time. Or, not inherit, but employ. I should have maybe... No, my cabinet's pretty good. They're all pretty loyal to me, actually. Give me a lot of political capital. I like it. Okay, so we're going to skip this turn. And we're just going to see what comes up in as a result. And then maybe we'll start doing some straw polls about what we should do. So, global economy is good. Clearly, that's because I'm running the country so well. We still have a small surplus. Great, we can cut taxes even further. How awesome is that? Human Rights Society actively encourages its members to oppose the current government. Now, that's a little scary. We'll have to do something about them. Loyalty of our ministers is good, but we need to appoint a UN ambassador. So, we've got a choice here. We could appoint Audrey Wong, a well-known patriot who will fight tooth and claw to get our interests represented at the UN. Seen as a popular choice among patriotic and more conservative citizens, she is historically against foreign aid and a supporter of import tariffs. She is not popular internationally. Or I can grab Mason Johnson, popular figure on the international stage, a reputation for solving difficult problems through compromise and understanding, a true internationalist, popular with liberals and socialists in our society, as well as foreign leaders. You know what? This is a great time to put in a straw poll because I can see reasons to do both. So this is the UN ambassador. Do we take the one who is more conservative, or take the one who is more liberal / socialist? Create poll, grab the link, drop that in there, boom. So it's a toss-up because we are secret capitalists. We do want to push our agenda over time, but we also need to make sure we get elected the first time. The first election will be the toughest. After that, we'll have another 5 years, so a total of 10 years to really modify our things. Looks like the conservative choice is going to win here. Great. So it's going to be Audrey Wong. We're going to pick her. We're against foreign aid. So it is going to have a few effects. Our popularity is going up. Look at that. Look at that. People are getting happy. Retired folks are getting much, much happier. Now, only 20% of the population is retired, but they love the fact that we cancel the inheritance tax, the wealthy people. Again, they're 22.4% of the population. They like us slightly more. We'll see if we can make more people wealthy. I mean, obviously, that's our overall goal, right? And there's lots of different ways of doing that. Border control will be a very interesting question mark there. So right now, we may not get elected, but I think we're in a half-decent position to improve things. Now, the religious people don't like us very much. And why is it? It's mostly because of our abortion law that we've got. The abortion is currently set to it's on demand. Anyone can just ask for an abortion anytime they want. Religious people really, really hate that. The liberals like it okay. The conservatives are not a huge fan. I could bring it down a notch to require 2 doctors' approvals. The liberals will actually be almost as happy with that. The conservatives will hate it half as much. The religious people will go from hating it super lots to hating it almost nothing. And I feel that given what we're trying to accomplish, that might be a good possibility. Another move that could help things in a couple of different ways is to change our creationism versus evolution balance, where we could start teaching, say, creationism only if we want to cut down on the amount of liberals. But the thing is, I'm not anti-liberal in this game. I'm anti-socialist. Very important to pick that up. And the religious membership would go up dramatically if we make more conservatives or more creationism. We get a lot more religious people, which we may or may not want. Depends on how happy we can keep them. Again, keep in mind that religious does not equal conservative, does not equal capitalist, that's for sure. So it may not work out. I feel like changing the abortion law might be a quick and easy way to get a lot more support in the electorate, though. Just by going for 2 doctors' permission. What else could we do? Well, we still have a surplus. We could look at cutting taxes a little bit more. Which sounds good. What are our other problems? So we got obesity, right? That's one thing. We've got an asthma epidemic, which is mostly because the environment is bad. There's also a fair amount of car usage. I suspect very much that we're not going to be solving the asthma epidemic problem, which does hurt productivity a little, which I don't like, and it pisses off parents a lot, which is not great. But fixing the environment does not sound like something that's going to be a super high priority for us, right? And car usage, well, I mean, I suppose less cars on the road are not a bad thing, but the problem is I don't think we are going to be funding much in the way of public transit. Doesn't sound right, does it? So I don't think it sounds the way we want. There's a fair amount of alcohol abuse going on. God, these people must watch my Let's Drunk videos. And that is partially caused by poverty, unemployment, but a lot is just the overall alcohol consumption, which is affected by the alcohol law, alcohol tax. We could cancel the alcohol tax, which would drive the alcohol consumption even higher. I don't think we want to do that. There is drug use. We have a certain amount of, narcotics. Apparently we have legal cannabis, which is news to me, being Canadian. I mean, we have decriminalized cannabis, but that's not exactly the same thing. We could drop this down to completely outlawed, which would make conservatives happy, upset liberals, and not really do all that much else, actually. If we increase legalization, then organized crime goes down a lot, but I don't think that sounds like the sort of thing we want to do. What else do we have over here? We've got a homelessness problem. And that, I don't think, is something we're going to tackle directly. We can normally help that by increasing state housing, but I don't think that's going to happen. So it is much easier to play this game as pretty socialistic and liberal, but we are not taking that. We've got a rail strike as well. You know what? I don't want that. So we are going to affect the labor laws. This sounds like something that a certain Canadian Prime Minister may have done a few times. We are going to butt in on these labor disputes. We're going to change the labor laws to be pro-employer. It's going to dramatically decrease the people who are members of the trade unions and also who are socialists. It will decrease wages and increase the working week. It boosts productivity and makes capitalists happy. I think we have to do this. You can't just cancel this policy outright. There's always going to be some labor laws. But yeah, we're not pro-union. We're going to go for pro-employer and see how that does. We got a fair amount of political capital left. At some point, I will want to lower income tax. I could do it now. Of course, income tax are responsible for the high majority of our income right now. And actually, changing the income tax won't affect the membership of people in different categories. It will make them happier, but that's about it. Got a capital gains tax. If we drop this down, so right now, there's fewer people who are self-employed because of the capital gains tax. So if we got rid of that, it would add more self-employed people, which isn't bad. What else we've got tax-wise? Property tax. Again, doesn't affect membership, and that's what I'm looking to do right now. I want to shift membership, and then we'll worry about happiness somewhere down the road. Yeah, we can affect how many motorists we have by changing the petrol tax. And micro-generation grants makes more environmentalists. It also improves the environment. So this encourages people to set up solar panels on the roofs of their houses, windmills, that sort of thing. Frankly, I think I'm going to keep this in. I kind of like this idea. Now, we could go and implement a new policy. Now, as much as I am sort of a capitalist, not socialist, there's a lot to be said about a few grants towards business. Small business grants, robotic research grants. Oh, do we already have the... Okay, we've got science funding. What's the other thing I'm looking for? Technology grants. Oh, it's over here. I didn't realize that. Is currently in there, and they're quite high. It lowers unemployment, it increases the technology level of our nation, increases our GDP, productivity. Capitalists are happy about this. Oh, well, we clearly want to keep that in there. The science funding is actually so low. It's so low, it's decreasing the technology level of our nation. I don't think that's good. So even though, I mean, it's not a socialist thing. This will actually, it will increase the number of state employees we have, which has some pros and cons. But I think it's worth increasing our science funding. I just don't know how high. Certainly enough so that we're not losing technology. Maybe a little bit more than that. Increases our GDP. I think overall this is going to be quite profitable for us. We're going to bring up our science funding to electron microscopes. Are we almost at $3,000 worth of donations? Wow. You guys are the greatest. Alright, we're going to pump that up. That'll use most of our political capital up. Don't want to make too many big changes. You want to, do it slowly over time and see what the effects are. So let's go into the next quarter here of Prime Minister Quill Harper. So, question about banning same-sex marriage. Until recently, this hasn't been an issue. Marriage has been a straightforward issue and a ceremony reserved for heterosexual couples. But increasingly, the more liberal ministers have been carrying out same-sex marriages. Should we ban this at the constitutional level? Option A, ban it. It's crazy to allow this travesty of a religious ceremony to take place by standing by and doing nothing. We're silently condoning the practice. The church will be outraged if we don't move quickly to put a stop to this. The other option is to allow marriages. There are no good reasons to ban such marriages. It's no business of the state to interfere in the relationships between loving couples regardless of their gender. Placing a ban on the kinds of relationships our citizens can form is unforgivable intrusion into people's private lives. Keep in mind, we are secret capitalists, not secret conservatives. So there's no reason to instantly ban this. Frankly, I feel like we might, even though this is not actually what, I keep saying, oh, I'm the Quill Harper. Stephen Harper's the current Prime Minister of Canada, by the way, and he's a conservative. And while I keep saying that, I don't think that I'm actually going to be playing my character in this game as a particular conservative. I think I might actually be a little bit more libertarian more than anything else. And I simply cannot bring myself to ban the same-sex marriage, so we're totally going to allow it. All right, we still have a budget surplus. Despite the fact that we increased funding, we are doing awesome. Partially, it's helped by the fact that the global economy is so hot, although it's cooling off a little bit. We are at a very high point in the global economy, but I'm still going to, pretend that I'm taking credit for everything. We've got a AA credit rating. It would be nice to get AAA, but that'll work okay. Interest rate is quite low. We are spending a little bit every quarter to pay off some of our debt, but our debt is being paid off a little bit. And that's an interesting question, actually, is whether we should actually be focusing on paying off our debt, which sounds like the sort of thing that a small government sort of capitalist-minded person would do. But there's a few different ways of doing it. If you can do something that stimulates the economy, improves the GDP, then effectively that's going to help you pay off your debt somewhere down the way, somewhere else. Chat's being pretty good. Actually, I'm surprised. We've got 1,200 people in here, and it's not like going that much faster. Haven't had to put in a slow mode yet, which makes me super happy. All right, so 33, capital. What are we going to do? Ban abortion, someone is saying. I don't think that's going to be the case. I still say that that we could go to the 2 doctors' approval. And again, my position in this game on abortion law has nothing to do with my position one way or another in real life. But it might be a good strategic move to do this. Because frankly, especially with the gay marriage thing, I'm honestly afraid that I'm going to become assassinated by some sort of extremist religious group. This may have happened in another game that I played. They really hate abortion laws. Like, they vaguely dislike the same-sex marriage, but not that much. It's mostly the abortion laws, also the legalized prostitution. I guess we just cancel it is what would happen here. It's weird that like it's at none and still a lot of stuff happens. And the more maximum, the more the religious hate it. Now trade unionists are really hating me. And I don't blame them. They hate the labor laws. And 42% of the population is that. Straw poll, but you know what? You're right. Okay, we're going to do this. And again, keep in mind that this has nothing to do with anyone's personal opinion. In Democracy 3, abortion should be. So it currently is. It currently is on demand. Anyone can have it whenever they want, basically. 2 doctors' approval. So you guys are my my caucus, I guess, my party. Caucus sounds dirty. Limited circumstances, limited circumcisions. Wait, what? That's a different thing. So at this point, the religious become very happy. The liberals are still mostly happy, and the conservatives stop hating it altogether. We can go under only life-threatening circumstances, or we could ban it outright. Which that's the thing. The liberals sort of start to dislike it here, but not even that strongly, and then they start all of a sudden they flip to super hating it at total ban. So I'm curious about the opinion. Again, I will take the final decision. But let's see what people have to say about it. I love the straw poll website. It's brilliant. I could program this relatively easy, and it would be fun to do it with the instant updates. 2 doctors' approval, limited circumstances, fairly neck and neck, with 2 doctors' approval coming out ahead. And in my opinion, the 2 doctors' approval is the stronger one. In fact, I'm going to put in my own vote because I'm allowed to. So there. 2 doctors' approval, I think, for our particular strategy that we're trying to pursue, is the strongest option. So I'm making my case for it. And the voting is slowing down, and it looks like we've got pretty decent decision to go with the 2 doctors' approval. Strategically, I think is very, very strong here. So we're going to apply this change. It does take a lot of political capital to change it, but it probably means that we won't get assassinated by a religious fundamentalist. We can take a look at what threats are out there. Right, so these are the groups up top that are opposed to us for various reasons. So the Human Rights Society membership is actually going down. There are fewer people who are part of it, but there's still 1.8 or actually 1.9 million people. Out of like 34 million people in Canada, 1.9 of them are in the Human Rights Society. And the threat assessment is relatively high. Now, these guys won't necessarily do anything crazy. However, they can become radicalized, which is what these people down here are. And these are the people who are going to try to like assassinate you and blow things up. So if the threat assessment gets too high in some of these, they will go here, and then they will, yeah, just try to off you. So we got to keep that in mind. Overall, things are going pretty well. Does someone have an opinion maybe about what we should pursue next? The rail strike is dropping very, very rapidly, mostly thanks to our rail laws. We're also doing some rail subsidies. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the rail strike to end, and then, which should happen next turn, and then we might cancel rail subsidies. We're going to see how it goes there. Some people want to ban prostitution, or they're just saying prostitution and drugs. They don't say what we want to do with them. Do a space program? The Canadian space program. That doesn't sound like the small government way to do anything. Legalize drugs. Now that's interesting because, again, we are not playing as conservatives. We are playing as a more libertarian thing, and certainly legalizing drugs would be in that direction. Now, legal drug consumption would go up. What is the effect of legal drug consumption? It probably brings down health, productivity, and actually I don't know, if this goes up, the alcohol consumption might actually go down. I'm not sure. I don't feel like it would be good for our country. Would drop organized crime. Do we have an organized crime problem right now? We actually do. Now, we could instead increase our police presence, our intelligence services, and so on. But that doesn't sound like small government-y kind of things. All right, one more straw poll. Drugs. Ban. Pot, okay. Or LSD, okay. I am not going to put in the full legalization. We're just going to have these three options for drugs. What do I want to vote? That's a good question. Thing is, the Liberals, I think, are already going to love us. I don't think that's much of a problem. The Liberals like us okay. But I like the idea of dropping organized crime a little bit more. You know what? I'm not going to vote. I abstain. Neck and neck to leave the pot only or to upgrade to LSD. And that's the thing. I think you can make a really good argument for both. You can't raise no political capital. So I guess, yeah, we're not going to do it this turn anyway. So I can probably just save this political capital for one turn. We'll see what happens. And we'll check the vote. I got religious condemnation. Immoral and spiritually corrupt. But I decreased abortion. Why are you so mad? Economic forecast. So again, the global economy is still weakening. Still pretty good right now. Our debts did not drop anymore, which is a little too bad. I would like to drop our debts a bit more. So let's take a look actually at what our expenses are. What are our biggest expenses? State health services, certainly. State pensions as well, and then state schools. And it might be time to start trimming some of that. But let's take a look at the straw poll. Looks like LSD OK has come out ahead there. All right. We will do that, and then we will look at cutting maybe pensions and healthcare and all that. Okay. Actually, how's the organized crime? Cancel? Yeah, it's still pretty high, so we will go and LSD OK. We will see if we can knock down organized crime through the application of drugs. Apply changes. Thump. All right, now we got 13 political capital left. So, expenses. State health services, very, very expensive. Also, extremely expensive to lower. Canadians do not want their health care cut. They don't like that idea. The state schools, same thing, very hard to cut. Now, if we do lower this just a little bit over time, both the health care and the schools, what will happen is the private services will come in and take over a little bit over time. Now, and same thing with private pensions here. Right now, our state pensions are actually half decent enough that private pensions are not really a reality. So we could cut this a little bit more. Might piss off the retirees, but the retirees love me. Frankly, they like me enough. We could afford to cut that down. It will, right now it is decreasing poverty. If we lower this, poverty will not be decreased as much. But it will save us a fair amount of money. We can't do it this turn. But that's all right. Do I want to add something in? Import tariffs? No, that